Incredible flavours, even better stories. One pour, 10 minutes, Aussie bourbon lovers sharing bourbon with Australia.
Yeah, that was good. And you got the nice squeaky bit where the cork is against the... So that's good work.
Thanks, Dave. What are we drinking?
This is Kings County Bottled in Bond from New York City.
Yeah. One of the oldest distilleries in New York. Is that oldest, longest? They
Come
make
on,
some
we were just talking
claim.
about it. They're the oldest distillery in New York City
Since Prohibition.
which sounds like it's a grand claim, but do you know when they opened?
2010.
2010.
But
Jeez.
they are the actual oldest since Prohibition in New York.
So, it does smell good, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's bottled in Bond. It's Kings County, so they're in Brooklyn.
Yeah. What does bottle and bond mean, Dave?
Bottled in Bond. There's... I'm going to get the things exactly right, but the specifics of them you might need to Google just to make sure I got it right. Bottled in Bond is like the first thing that happened when they were starting to say there's too many rectifiers who are kind of messing with the whiskey.
Yep.
So let's, as American bourbon makers, let's make a law, or, you know, they petition the government to get a law happening to protect the authenticity of bourbon.
Yep.
And so Bottled in Bond Act meant that the distillers could make this thing and they could stick a sticker over the top and you can still see it. They still put it on the bottles now. And the idea of it is that it's a legitimate product. It's a very specific thing and you can only call something Bottled in Bond if it follows these rules.
Yeah.
And there's 4 of them. So let me tell you what the 4 things are. The first one is that it must be produced by one distiller at one distillery within one distilling season. And so one distilling season just means in the first half of the year, the second half of the year. So between January and June or July and December.
Yeah.
So you have to do it in that. It can only be done at one distillery and by one distiller. So it's like you can't have a team doing a bunch. You can't do it across a few distilleries.
Yeah.
It's got to be all one.
Has been handed around a few places.
So that's the first thing. Second one is it needs to be distilled at a minimum of 100 proof, so 50% alcohol.
Yeah.
That's how it has to be distilled. So it comes off the still at 100 proof, 50% alcohol.
Yep.
Third one is it has to be aged, and this is like the one that's the most fun, aged in a federally bonded warehouse for at least 4 years.
Federally bonded as in that means
Yeah, so back in the
people
day,
check on it.
not even that. Back in the day, they used to have
Oh, God.
a government employee guarding it to make sure it was
messing
legit.
with it.
Yeah. And that job would have been
It was like
well
a quality control, in other words, so that people weren't putting weird shit in their whiskey and topping it up with stuff that wasn't correctly.
That's it, because effectively the government's kind of like providing a guarantee that it's the good stuff. So that's kind of what the original idea was. You don't have to do that anymore, but
some
you
people
still have to
choose
be in a
to.
bonded warehouse,
Yeah.
which, you might have to Google what that means. I think it just means it's a warehouse that's
Legit?
allowed to operate.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe Google that. And then the fourth one is that it needs to be bottled at exactly 100 proof, 50%. So there you go. That's what Bottled in Bond is.
And the Kings County, wow.
Kings County.
Oh, like really cinnamony, desserty, pecan pie kind of. Is it pecan pie? It's like, I feel like I'm sitting at a dessert table.
Maybe. Am I getting the mash bill right? Is this the one that's 80% corn, 20% malted barley? I might have that.
know.
I think it is.
But it's,
I think it
very
is.
sweet to know.
Well, loads of corn in there. If I got the mash bill right. And I've heard people talk about the funk you get off of pot still. So all the Kings County stuff is pot still
Pot
distilled.
still.
It's not a column still. And I asked Kelsey, who was our tour guide, she was unbelievable on our tour in New York. And she said, the funk might be coming from the fact that you kind of get a bit of build-up.
In the copper still after a while.
In the pot still, because that's just, there's nooks and crannies and stuff, and you can their stuff builds up. So sometimes there's some stuff kind of caked on between, if it kind of distills, if they distill the same stuff without cleaning it.
Well, she said they distill like for a week or something. Like they distill for a while one particular type, and then they change it up and distill a different type.
Yeah.
But, oh, God, it smells
It's lovely, isn't it?
like a dessert table.
So, needs to be at least 4 years old is interesting. I think a lot of the bottled in bond products are older than 4 years old. I think this one is older than
This
4 years
one's
old.
a 7-year-old.
Oh,
But when they put the age on it, they also have to put it's got to be the youngest. Like if it's different, if they've blended it, whatever the youngest is in there is the age in the bottle. So it could. This one says it's aged 7 years, which means the youngest bourbon in there is 7 years old.
That's it. And so then also on this bottle and bond sticker, it says that it was distilled in the fall of 2015. So that's the distilling season that it was distilled it, and it was bottled in the spring of 2023.
Yeah.
So it's aged 7 years.
Yeah.
And they do small runs, right? So it's not, they don't do huge volumes at Kings County. But we did an amazing tour. We had such a good time there. What did you enjoy most about that
I
tour?
think it's the first, maybe the only tour I've been on where when they give the history, like lots of the tours have, like I love the stories and the great history behind every distillery we've been on, but often it's about that particular family or that particular distillery, whereas this, she went into like the bourbon and whiskey history of America at the start, which I found was fascinating. It wasn't just about what had happened at that distillery. It was about like as a country and the different, different riots and different political things and different stories and different states because often and maybe a lot of the distillery tours we've done are in Kentucky. They share a lot of the Kentucky stories, which are always fabulous. But this, she kind of gave an overall more of American history, which I really loved. Can
I tell you, as I'm enjoying this, the thing that is really I'm really aware of how good that finish is.
Yeah.
Who was it who said that sometimes, was it Drew from Buffalo Trace who said sometimes when reviewers will taste a stag, they'll have a mouthful and they'll just put the glass down for 5 minutes and then they'll write about what they're tasting 5 minutes later?
Well, because the flavours just keep coming, yeah. I'm the same. I'm like, oh, that's cinnamon. And then I'm like, oh, no, I'm getting butterscotch.
They're really lovely. Kings County you can definitely get here. They've got such a distinctive bottle. It's such a beautiful bottle.
I love the simplicity of it. It's just a sticker across the bottom with typed, just simple.
It looks like they knocked it up on their typewriter at home.
It looks great. I love it.
So cool.
Very minimalist.
Really kind of considered design.
Yeah, and it's in Brooklyn. It's super cool.
The story is that Colin, is that his name? I think that's his name.
I think so, I don't know.
And his mate, I can't remember what his mate's name is. Hang on, we can check it out.
But they were distilling illegally to start with, right?
This is kind of it, yeah.
Well, they didn't know they were. They were just distilling in their home, trying to figure out recipes and make some bourbon.
That's it. Yep, Colin Spolman and David Haskell. And they were kind of they were kind of messing around with a still and
a very tiny one.
Yeah,
it's super miniature. You can see it in the tour. They show you the little tiny still he had in his kitchen.
And they were making it for their mates.
Yeah. And someone's like, yeah, that's illegal.
But weren't they like,
so
this is pretty good first?
Yeah. Everyone was asking for it. And then someone's like, you better go legit. So he went legit.
That's it. It's a beautiful distillery. It's in the old Navy Pay yards. I've got the name wrong again. How about us with our facts?
Yeah.
Where is it based? I'll find out. Anyway, right in Brooklyn there, and it's this beautiful it's in the Brooklyn Navy Yards.
Yeah.
And the front of it looks like a castle. The two watch house things at the front you can almost drive through.
Yeah.
And you can have a drink of a cocktail or drink the bourbons and ryes in the front there.
Yeah, we went in a little round bit of the tower. It was really cool.
So good. They're also kind of one of the distilleries that got on board the Empire Rye thing. So that's the New York distilleries getting together and saying we're going to make our very own expression of a whiskey, which is the Empire Rye. Which is
high rye. Like
it's a rye whiskey, so it's I think it's 95.5. I could have that wrong, but we tried it.
Yeah.
And it's a lovely rye.
Yeah. I'm not a huge rye fan, but it was very nice.
Yeah. But a really cool thing to do. If you go to New York and you're like, do you know what? I wish there was a good distillery tour. That's a really cool one. Lots of really good history. And if you get to do it on a Sunday, Kelsey might be doing the tours and she has so much knowledge. She's a bourbon steward. And of all the tours I've been on, I feel like, that's not the right thing to say.
And there's some really friendly cats.
Oh, yeah.
If you like animals.
But I thought that she's got to be one of the best tour guides we've had.
Oh,
she was amazing.
She knew her stuff. Yep. And you go into this really cool room where they have all the experiments. Like they were soaking like chipotle and was there like rose. They just had all this stuff and all these experimental bottles just to try and work out flavours, and you could see which bottles had made it to the shelves and you could buy now and which ones were no longer available or never going to go further than the experimental bottle. And then they had a big thing in the corner too of that. They had the first whiskey ever distilled in New York. Yeah, I went to move it to try and take a picture of the label, and then I was like, oh my God, I'll probably do something like bump it and drop it and break it.
It's got to be careful of precious museum heirlooms like that. Well, I think I'm going to pour some more of that. But if you're in New York and you want to check out some distilleries, it's not the only one. There's some other ones too. We'll talk about them another time.
But this one, worth doing.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you're connected with us on TikTok, Instagram and YouTube, and stay connected with us by clicking subscribe on your favourite podcast app.